So the first thing is you need to understand how you're paid, and you need to understand what it costs to work for a real estate firm, because every real estate firm needs revenue generated to keep their doors open. Welcome to Real Estate for Real People. My name's Brad. This is my wife,
Marianne.
Thank you.
Forgot my name. It's an early morning.
I didn't want to say your name for you because I don't want people to think I treat you like an object.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stop it. Okay. Anyways, so today we're going to talk about how and why we got into real estate, and how someone might get into real estate that wants to get into real estate.
Okay.
So let's, I will not tap, I promise. So let's start with you, seeing that you're the noob.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm newer.
You're newer, so.
Not by much.
So, a couple of years. So the first question is, why did you get into real estate?
So I got into real estate because I chose to leave the profession of education now after almost 30 years for a variety of reasons. Nothing that we need to go into here. Walked away with a lot of amazing skills and great experience in that. But real estate was not something I ever thought I would do. I can't sell my way out of a box. So in my perception of real estate was that
Heavy sales.
you sell things, you sell houses,
It's going to take to get you in this house today?
Yes,
Right.
no, I don't do that.
Okay.
And so anything that had to do with sales, I couldn't, that wasn't for me. But you're kind of the reason and the fault that I got into real estate, because you were doing it and you needed help.
Yeah.
And so you asked me to.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched you for a couple of years and realized that real estate, if you're doing it well and doing it, in my opinion, right, you're really taking care of people. And I did that in education for 30 years. So that resonated well with me. And as most people probably know, when you get into education, you're not getting into education for the money.
True.
And so it's really a service-oriented profession. Mm-hmm. And so bringing that piece into real estate was really the right fit. So that was my reason for getting into real estate. Is kind of, I don't know that default is the right word, but I was invited.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's part.
Yes.
That was the biggest piece.
Right.
And I was throwing a lifeline to somebody who felt like they were drowning because they needed help.
I know what you're talking about.
Yes, I know.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So you came from 30 years in education. Mm-hmm. Not exactly the industry or profession you would think would transfer over into real estate. But let's talk about some of those industries that do transfer over really well. Like I would make the argument that education is really a great fit for people who want a second profession. Or if you found that teaching has left you, the reason that you started teaching is no longer applicable, which we see a lot with the people that we talk to who come in from education. It's really, it seems to be, we've had police officers, sheriffs, law enforcement, firefighters,
all
right?
service-oriented.
Yeah, anybody who's really service-oriented, right, tends to be an amazing fit. What other things might be important? So the reason that I was begging you to come to work and help me is because you were really systems-based, right? You had all the systems down, the check boxes, and you've got the discipline to do that. So I think that's why teachers make an amazing fit into real estate. But who else do you think might be a good fit? And why, I guess, is the better question.
Well, I think you've already hit on it, really. It's anybody that puts people as the priority in their day, not the money.
Right. So that's basically almost any first responder.
Yeah. Any first responder. And I would say a lot less immediately stressful than being a first responder, just saying.
Yeah.
Nobody dies in real estate.
Nobody burning buildings here.
No, let's be clear. Yeah. I think one of the things that, one of my misconceptions, and I think this may be common for a number of people out there, is not realize, so being in an education as long as I was, I didn't really think about the skills that I had that would transfer well into another profession, because I didn't have the perspective of how that could work.
Because you just thought it was sales.
That's true.
Teaching wouldn't really roll into that.
Exactly.
Per se.
But what I came to realize is that in real estate, you are teaching all the time. As a business owner, I'm teaching and training agents in processes and technology and how to take care of clients, teaching them how to use systems, teaching them all those pieces. And I didn't really realize how important that was going to become in our business. On top of that, we're always teaching clients and helping them to learn the process of real estate, whether they're buying or selling. So all those things were a great fit for me.
Yeah.
I think that's true of a number of professions. First responders you mentioned, there are a number of folks who have been in pastoral positions, ministry positions, same kind of thing. We're all taking care of people. We're relating to people. If you've been in leadership in a church, all those things carry over. Those skills can carry over pretty easily.
Yeah.
Pretty smoothly.
And as I think about it, I think about the agents that we have, and some of them do come out of a sales background, but some of them come out of social work. Right,
yes.
Because they're caring for people.
Right.
So
exactly.
I think the underlying theme is that if you care about people in the job you do now, you'd be likely a good fit, especially knowing that there isn't. I mean, real estate is a sales position, but it's really more of a consultancy as opposed to a hard sell.
Yes.
Right. There's no.
You're being a guide on the
What's
side.
it going to take to get you in this house today? Closing. None of that stuff.
Right.
Right. Especially the way we work.
Right. And that's kind of one of the things that I was going to say is that I think Realty One Group, one of the pieces, the foundational pieces for us is that we do focus on the people.
Right.
That isn't true of every real estate company.
No.
A lot of real estate companies really focus on the money.
Right. And the
so,
statistics and the closings and right.
All of those kinds of things. And those data pieces are good for tracking business or setting goals and things like that. But if that's the reason that you get up in the morning, you're probably, for our firm anyway, it's not probably going to be the best fit.
No.
You will feel uncomfortable here because we focus more on serving people and taking care of people than we do on the money.
Right.
And the money follows. I mean, if we take care of the people and do our job well and all those things, the money follows. So we make a good living at what we do. But that's not the reason I get out of bed in the morning is,
To go make another buck?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, agreed. So my background was very different from yours because I'd been in sales pretty much my whole life.
Yes, you had.
So after I moved down here from the homeland of Canada, if I wasn't in school, I was working some kind of a sales-based job. And I found my way to a manufactured home company. And then from there, I got tired of the nepotism inside that family-owned company. And you could see that, there was turmoil on the inside, and you knew that was never going to really free up people to move somewhere up in the company. And so I then moved over and started working for Adair Homes here I was in the Beaverton office, but then opened up the Woodland office. And
Adair Homes being custom.
So Adair Homes is, if you're from the Northwest, you'll know who they are, but they're an on-your-site builder. They don't build subdivisions full of homes, but if you have land, they'll come and replace a burned down home or an older mobile home. And they build it from the ground up, normal stick-built house. And so I was in sales there, and then a lender popped in one evening on a dark December night and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about getting into lending?"
It wasn't Santa either.
No, it wasn't Santa. But I will tell you this: she hit me right at the right time. I just had a rather not great conversation with one of the managers in the office, and I thought to myself, I hadn't thought about lending before now, but now that you mention it, I'm willing to consider that. So that was really my first foray into being, the concept of here's your keys, go get them, Tiger. And I floundered for a couple of years in lending because there was zero training, zero support. It was, somebody pointed to my computer and said, "Yeah, just turn that on and start going through the guidelines." I'm like, "What?" So I had no idea how any of that was working. So I found all kinds of ways to not do something, which became very valuable for me because I didn't ever want to put anyone in that position in the future because I realized how negatively impactful it was for me.
Lack of leadership and training and coaching.
Exactly. No mentor, nobody to really follow through and help me understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. Just, hey, do that. Well, but why? I don't have time to tell you, just do that. And so there's a difference, and we'll talk about this in another podcast, there's a difference between being a boss and being a leader, right? And I had a lot of bosses. I didn't have a lot of leaders that I worked for. And so I wanted to, I kind of made this little commitment to me that if I ever got to that position, I would never do that to somebody else, right? So then from lending, I worked into construction lending, and that is where things happened. The housing crash in 2008 came in, and it was devastating, right? It was bad.
Personally devastating.
Personally, yeah. Financially, it was ugly. But then as things were improving, I got into construction lending, and that was good. Learned a ton, but again, back to the whole boss issue. And I don't really consider myself hard to get along with, typically. Right?
I agree.
But yeah, I had a couple of challenges with some bosses, but they taught me a lot. Unfortunately, more of what not to be like than what to be like.
Sometimes that's just as important.
Oh, it's super valuable. Yeah, because yes, very valuable. So then from when lending became more about compliance and less about, shaking hands and kissing babies type thing.
Which is your specialty, by the way.
Yeah, compliance is not my specialty, right? So, So anyways, it was just one of those things where I decided, it's time to get out. So I got my real estate license because I was thinking, what could I possibly do now that I could take everything I've done in the past and kind of throw it into one bowl. And real estate was the only thing. I had been dancing around real estate for almost 25 years with those 3 other jobs. And I'd seen real estate paperwork in every one of those jobs, right? So I all of a sudden this light bulb went off and like, hey, you need to get into real estate. I'm like, oh, what a great idea. Anyways, so we got into real estate and started out with a big brokerage firm, the big name firm, and quickly realized that I was more of a number than a name. And but when you get into real estate, you don't even know what questions to ask.
True.
Right? So I met with a young gal last night, and she had a whole list of questions written down, and I thought that was super valuable. And I thought it was great. There was gaps in what she should have asked. So, we made sure to bring those things up because it's a full disclosure moment, right? You need to help them make this awesome decision. You shouldn't just base it by dazzling them with all the money that they could make. You kind of need to, talk about the rough stuff as well, the stuff that's hard to deal with and the challenges. But so I got, we was at that office for a year and decided that I needed to spread my wings and try something different. So a friend of mine and I went to another company, and that was an amazing company as far as how that worked and how it ran and the coaching and the mentoring and the listing presentations and all this stuff. So that really kind of lit my brain on fire about how to do this, right? And how it can be done better. So really it was about best practices at that point. And that's really, at that point you came onto the scene because I was doing well enough at that time in the market and in that company that I got myself in trouble because I was keeping dates in my brain. And you saved me from that mostly. Outside of our principal broker, who was the other person that saved us from that. And that was a bit of a mess, right? But that taught me some very valuable lessons. Number one, always listen to my wife. And number two, if you have to be prepared in this business that if you make a mistake, you better learn from it, and then you better get out your checkbook because you need to fix that. And that was going to be an expensive one.
So some of the things I hear you saying as far as getting into real estate is ask a lot of questions, have a plan. So we probably need to talk about those things a little bit more. But the other thing is that when things are shifting, being willing to make a change.
Right.
And I think one of the things for a lot of people is that change is scary.
Yeah.
And you have to be willing to kind of take a leap of faith and try something new. And for some of us who have been taught in the past that when you make a commitment, you do it. You make a commitment for life. You start the team, you start the season, you stick with it. Not just for a season, but for all eternity, it feels like. And being okay with treating some of those decisions like experiments.
Right.
Not that commitment isn't important and loyalty is good. And at the same time, when you're trying something new, you don't necessarily know if that's something that's going to work well for you and really fit you in the long run. Right? So the young lady that you spoke with yesterday, let's take that individual as an example. When she was starting to get into real estate, or anybody getting to real estate, what would you say are the first steps that they need to take or to consider as they are getting into this profession considering it?
Yeah, so the first thing is to understand that every state has different requirements. So we border Oregon and Washington where we are. We're in Washington. We border Oregon literally 8 minutes down the road. And so in Washington, it's 90 hours of an online course that you have to take. And if you start there and you go all the way to, I've got my license and I'm a fully functioning real estate agent, it's about somewhere between $3,000 and $3,500 in expenses to do all that, right? I mean, with the tests and the fees and the associations and MLSs and all that stuff, it works out somewhere around $3,000, give or take. Oregon is a completely different story. Right? They require 140 hours for any new agent. If I wanted to go get my principal broker license over there, it's 190 hours. And and all of that stuff costs money, right? And it takes a considerable amount of time. The other thing you got to remember is when you're taking that 90-hour course, you're learning a completely new language.
Agreed.
Right. I mean, some of the stuff. I mean, the tenants in common and all those title and escrow and legal terms are enough to make your brain melt. And so
it is like I will say it's like learning a foreign language in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Well, and I consider myself relatively intelligent, and so it wasn't super bad, but I don't have test anxiety either, right? So if you have test anxiety, that adds to the mix, and just understand that sadly the way that the legislature and the way that the people who have created the test, they've created it so that all you need to do is learn it long enough to regurgitate it and pass, and you'll literally use maybe 5 to 10% of that moving forward ever in real estate.
I think the most important piece of that really is that you know where to go back and find the answers.
Right.
Because I have gone back to some of those books and said to review and see what the guidelines are, what the rules are,
right.
And those kinds of things. But I would agree with you. As an educator, not the best way to create a
learning environment.
A learning environment or courses but it's the Department of Licensing, so you just do.
Right.
You
just suck it up.
So there's a time element involved. There's a cost element involved. As they are going through that process. What are other things that they could be doing? Let me say, I'm thinking like informally, maybe to get ready for a profession in real estate.
Well, I know what we offer to the people who are talking to us, right? We want them to come and start being part of the Pacifica family, right out of the gate. Start coming to the meetings if you're not working a full-time job. Start coming to our peer-to-peer meetings so that you can be around other agents and hear their challenges, hear their wins, hear their fears, talk about them, because we talk about marketing ideas. We talk about all the stuff that's making them winners, the stuff that's challenging. I mean, sometimes there's tears, sometimes there's frustration, it's joy, it's all these different things.
A lot of laughter.
A lot of laughter, right? Yeah, because you got to do that, because real estate can be very serious, and it can be very legalistic. So you've got to be in a spot where you can also have fun, right? So we try to do all that, but then we also invite anybody who wants to get into the deal. Come here and use our Wi-Fi, right? Be around realtors so that if you have a question as you're doing your classes, you got somebody to ask, because there's almost always somebody here that's could answer your questions. So, I think on the informal side, it's get involved in a firm. If you're not comfortable here, or you're more comfortable, or you've got a friend or somebody that wants you to join their firm, ask if you can go and be part of the firm before you sign up, right? Obviously you can't go and, you don't have access to tour the homes or any of that kind of stuff. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that you can't go on a caravan tour, right? Like once a month we'll do that with our agents. It doesn't mean you can't do that. Come and tour and start, learning. I mean, I hate to even use this word, but there's a company that starts with the letter Z that's in real estate that you could go onto their website, right? And start looking at what homes are in the area and what they cost and how long they're on the market and how fast they're off the market and, what makes an appealing listing presentation. Is the toilet seat up on that photo? Is there a Chucky doll in the crib? What are the things that are making it a great listing presentation and not, right? Can you see the countertop, or is it just dishes and pill bottles, So there's all kinds of things that you don't even know that you're seeing when you're looking at that kind of stuff. So, but outside of that, understand what your time constraints are. Give yourself 2 to 3 hours a day, kind of max. I don't know. You've got to be almost superhuman to do more than 2 to 3 hours a day of the 90-hour course.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, because it is. But like you said, it's a new language, and it is. Your brain is a bag full of Jello at the end of that time period, right? At least I know it was for me. And so for that, just be prepared for how long it could take you. What do you have, 6 months to do those 90 hours?
I think so. Yeah. I think the other piece too is not preparing just financially for the actual fees and things like that, but there's going to be some time that it takes to kind of gear up your business. And so my suggestion would be, and we talk about this with agents, new agents, is to have 4 to 6 months of money for bills in the bank. So it allows you time to not sell desperate, because desperation breath turns people away like anything.
They can smell you coming as soon as you get out of the car.
Yeah. And so, so just having that reserve to be able to lean in on and really commit yourself to getting your business going, I think is critical.
So I've made a couple of mistakes in that, where I talk to an agent who says, "Ooh, I want to come on." Mm-hmm. And then they don't show up for 6 or 8 months. But that's been 6 or 8 months where they've not really been saving any money. And then all of a sudden they've got their license and they're ready to go. And they don't have this 4 to 6 months. And so what we see them really struggling to completely commit to this, because, even if you got a lead that turned into an actionable transaction on the first day you're here, you're 30 to 45 days before you get paid for that transaction, if it runs perfectly. So the chances of that happening, slim, right? Doesn't mean it won't happen, but don't
count on it.
Don't count on that to happen that way, right? So yeah, ideally we want our people to be done with their mentor program and have their 5 transactions under their belt in the first 6 months. That's ideal, but it doesn't mean it happens that way. And I honestly don't know why this is, but the ladies always seem to be able to do it faster than the guys. And I don't know why, outside of the guys are all macho and I'm going to do it my way. I don't know what it is, but you ladies, you tend to be able to rocket through those first 5. The guys, not so much. I don't know why that is. But
I have a theory.
What's your theory? Because I would love to know.
Honestly, females have, I would just say, we're moms. And we take care of people all the time. And so...
Oh, so your nurturing side is automatically going to make you more effective.
It might.
Ooh, yeah, well, that is entirely possible. Okay, well, that's good to know. Yeah. Well, I'm not going to say that's wrong.
So what kinds of questions? So you talked about interviewing firms. What are a couple of the questions that you would suggest people ask? And I would say that we would be happy to put a list of questions together and attach it to the podcast in the comments. Either that, and then also the other thing I think would be really helpful to attach is first 30 days in real estate. And there's actually some things on that list. On that list that are things you can do ahead of time, like setting goals and coming up with your purpose statement and those kinds of things. You don't have to wait to be a realtor or in the real estate profession to be able to start doing some of that work to get you on the right path. But back to the questions, what are some of the questions that you would suggest, like 3 or 4 questions that you would suggest they ask?
So the first thing is you need to understand how you're paid, and you need to understand what it costs to work for a real estate firm, because every real estate firm needs revenue generated to keep their doors open. The firm itself obviously doesn't make any money without agents, right? So because the agents really are where the rubber meets the road, and so you don't have any agents, no money. So you obviously have to go get agents to start earning revenue for the firm to keep the doors open. So the first thing you want to do is you want to ask, what is your compensation plan? And it's really kind of broken into 2 groups right now. You got the more old school graduated split, where they might start you at 50-50, meaning they take half your commission check, you keep half. Or they might see you as somebody who has value because you come with some experience, and so they might give you 60-40. Maybe at year 2 or year 3, you might get 70-30. Some firms go all the way up to 80-20, right? So, and then our side of the aisle, we're a flat fee system where, based on the sales price of the home is what you pay. It's not a graduated, you don't have to earn a better income with us.
Everybody's on a level playing field in that regard.
Whether you're a new agent or a seasoned pro, we're going to pay you as best we can regardless, because our philosophy is you shouldn't have to earn your way to better pay, right? If you're doing the job, you're worth the job. Now, when you're in the mentor program, that's a different story. When you're learning, you're brand new. We do a 70-30 split for our agents because we share some of that money with the mentor who was holding their hand the whole time, teaching them all the ropes. And then the firm gets a little chunk of money. But after that, it's just a flat fee model. So you have to understand how you're paid. You have to understand your expenses. There are things like desk fees, technology fees. There are advertising fees. There are franchise fees. There are L&I, right? I mean, there are things and there's state fees that we have to charge in the state of Washington. So you have to understand your monthly outflow, because that can kill you if you're not prepared for it.
Well, I don't think I think most people are not aware, honestly. Seasoned agents, generally speaking, do not understand how much money they are paying monthly or out of every commission check. Because they never see it. It just is taken off the check. So anyway, so people need to understand that. So aside from the commission, what are some other things that new agents need to be asking about?
So you need to ask the required time commitment, right? Because a lot of offices want you to work floor. So you sit at the desk, and if leads walk in, you get to work them, but they want someone at the office in case a phone call comes in or something like that. So your floor time requirement, or your floor time opportunity is another way to say that. Also, the required meetings that you're going to have to be at. How many? How often? How long are they? Because, if you are someone who is really going to get after it, if you don't have any trainings in your company, they don't teach you forms, they don't teach you legal policies, they're just more of a, here's your keys, go get them, tiger. This is the wrong business to figure it out, right? Because it's extremely legalistic, and we don't ever want to set anybody up for that. So you have to ask what kind of trainings and what kind of classes. And there are some companies that they're well known for their training. What nobody tells you is they charge you $800 to $1,000 for that training. And when you're brand new, that's $800 or $1,000 you may not have. Right? But they don't ever tell you there's a fee attached to it until you've signed the paperwork and you're in. And now they say, oh, well, here, you need to sign up for this class. Well, there's an $800 invoice here. Oh, yeah, you got to pay for that. So, I mean, every brand is going to have their different ways that they do things. Some monetize everything, right? Some don't monetize anything. Some don't offer anything. We've even got some real estate models now where there is literally no office. So, you got virtual everything. So you have a little avatar and you have a computer building that you walk in, and that's great for an agent who is seasoned, but that's not great for an agent who needs care and attention, right? So you wouldn't necessarily want to...
Or even I would argue a seasoned agent who needs connection.
Right, because we all need that. Right.
This is a belly to belly business.
It is,
in my opinion.
Yeah.
And to really do it well, you've got to be physically in the room with people.
Yeah.
To do it well and have it be long term, have longevity in the profession.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah, it's important to understand that if we silo ourselves as a real estate agent, we can get into our head really fast, and next thing you know, you've got this downward spiral. I guess it looks like that. And you can crash and burn in a hurry. So I think the statistics are the average person is in and out of real estate in 2.91 years. And most of that is the first year struggling, the second year doing okay, and then the third year they're like, I'm out, because this isn't anything hard. What I expected, right? So understanding what you're getting into is critical, which is why the questions are important. So you have to ask about your fees, you have to ask about your time commitments, the amount of training.
One more.
What am I missing?
I don't know.
Oh.
I'm just saying, do you have one more question?
Gotcha. I thought you were had something for me there.
No.
The outside of that is really you need to be working on you as a human, I think, in this industry, because we all come with certain sets of skills, right? And if you are timid about talking about money, or you're timid about talking about, or timid talking to people, right? There are some things that you've got to get over, right?
Or you may not be able to.
Or don't get in the business.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, because you really have to be able to become part of someone's life for a short period of time, right? I mean, the nice thing is, if you love your client, you have 30 to 60 days once you're into contract to work through that with them. Or you could be 6 to 9 months or a year or 2 years working with people, helping them find kind of that purple unicorn house that they want, right?
House.
Yeah. And anyway, so we've got that, right? I mean, it's long-term relationships, but also understand that you have the power to fire people, right? If you have, I know, yeah. If you have a client, and I mean, there are jerks everywhere, right? But we've had ladies who have run into this misogynist jerk, and they're like, well, I have to stick with him. I'm like, no, you don't. There's nobody needs to stick around for abuse. I don't care what kind of abuse it is. You can fire a client at any time, and feel free to do it, right? There's no commission worth selling your soul for, ever. So, I mean, understand that human dynamics are a major part of real estate. And the more you understand how they work, the better off you are. So we'll work on that list of questions. I mean, that's just a general overview. But we can get that list put together and attach it to the podcast for sure.
Awesome. Anything else for the good of the order?
Yeah, I don't think so.
I would just say, if you're out there and you're interested in finding out, what does it take to be in real estate? What does it take to be a realtor? Feel free to reach out to us.
And that's really in any state, because we've got friends that own Realty One Group offices.
Yes.
Almost every state
we
in the
will
country.
Connect you. If it's not in Washington, we have people that we rely heavily on in other states, and we really trust them. So
other countries as well, right? So we're 14 countries now.
That's true.
Not just the U.S. So if you're watching this and you're somewhere that isn't the U.S., feel free to reach out. We may have an option for you.
Please like, share, comment. Thanks for joining the podcast today. We'll see you next time.
Talk to you later.